Did you know that there are over 4,000 different franchise opportunities in the United States, and they represent businesses in every single business segment that you could possibly think of? Now, if you're a buyer, you really have two options in sourcing one of these opportunities. One is to look for a business that's already up and running, i.e., a franchisee that's thinking of selling or retiring, and they're going to usually work with a business broker or a merger and acquisition advisor to advertise and sell their business. But if you're looking for a franchise opportunity as a startup, you really need to think differently. And you need to work with a franchise consultant or a certified franchise executive. So we've asked Charlie Bever, who is a certified franchise executive, CFE, to join us today to talk about how you would go about contacting a franchise consultant and what they do and how they help you steer through the over 4,000 different opportunities to help you put one together. So if you're a buyer thinking about buying a franchise, stick around because this conversation with Charlie, I think, will help you along your way. Well, Charlie Bever, welcome to the channel.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Brent.
Yeah, no, it's great having you. So for the audience, Charlie is a certified franchise consultant, and we'll get into that in a minute. But the difference between a franchise consultant, a business broker, and an M&A advisor is something we're going to talk about. Because Charlie, and what Charlie does, brings a certain skill set to the table for a pool of buyers that usually a broker or an M&A consultant don't have. So I'm just really excited to have Charlie on the channel. And I've known Charlie for 15, 16 years. We first met when he was at Miracle Year, helping them build out their franchise into the really world-class organization that it is now in the U.S.
Definitely. Yes.
Okay. Well, everyone gets an introduction when they come to the channel. And so let me do Charlie. So Charlie Bever is a career franchise consultant. He's the founder and principal of the Transition Authority, which is an affiliate of the award-winning Entrepreneur Authority. Charlie's done over 100 placements with 40 different brands of franchisors. He's a certified franchise executive. And Charlie, there's only, you told me off camera, about 1,200 in the world that are certified.
Maybe a few more than that now, maybe around 2,000. So
okay, there you go. Anyway, member of a pretty exclusive club. He's got a franchise management degree from Georgetown University, his MBA from Phoenix University, and he's an award winner, franchise broker award winner, recognized for excellence in franchise consulting. So I'm, again, really excited to have Charlie join us to talk about all things franchisees and franchisors, especially if you're not looking for an existing business opportunity. So this is really geared for a buyer who's looking for, geez, I'd like a franchise. Where do I start and who do I talk to and how do I get matched up between what I think I want, and maybe what's in the marketplace and what's available.
Very good.
So Charlie, why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about, just how you founded, how you got from where you were when I first met you at Miracle Year to owning your own business and operating.
Sure. So, when I first met you, Brent, I was the director of business development for Miracle Year and had great success there. I spent about 8 years working for Miracle Year, and we sold a lot of franchises during that 8-year time frame. And something I'm really proud of that we developed there was a competitor conversion program that was really unparalleled. we were able to convert some competitors over that, really benefited from the Miracle-Ear brand name and all of the systems and support that we had to offer. So it was very exciting to see those conversions, but it was equally as exciting to see people that wanted to be their own boss and do their own thing in the form of franchise ownership. So I think I liked it so well that in 2017 I decided to go off and do my own thing and be a full-time dedicated franchise consultant and help many people get into whatever type of opportunity they were seeking. It didn't have to be the hearing aid industry. I
Sure.
currently work with about 750 brands, and there's about 30 industries that make up those brands. It was exciting to go out on my own and be my own boss doing franchise consulting. As a result, fast forward about 9 years later, I'm now a multi-unit franchise owner. In addition to being a franchise consultant and helping people get into franchising, I can talk the talk and the fact that I own two different brands, and
Yeah.
I love the model. I love, the people that are part of franchising. It's really a small world. Everyone knows everyone, and it's a wonderful community.
Well, so Charlie, why don't you start off by just talking a little bit about the services that you offer potential buyer, and we could talk a little bit about the differences between a franchise consultant, which you do, and then a business broker or merger and acquisition advisor, which typically only represent up and running existing businesses.
Yes. So I would say the biggest difference between what I do for a living as a consultant and a business broker is my role is more of a matchmaker. I'm seeking out opportunities for individuals to purchase. And most people that come to me will say, Charlie, I know I want to be my own boss. I want to do my own thing. I don't know what's available out there. So it's really starting from scratch and helping them. But I don't do any selling. There's no selling involved. I am simply helping them get through what's known as a discovery process with the franchisor that they're expressing interest in. So behind the scenes, I'm debriefing with them, coming up with questions that I make sure that they're being asked. I know the kinds of
Right.
questions that the franchisor is going to ask them. Behind the scenes, I'm lining up financing for the individual and really just being their coach all the way through the discovery process, which lasts about 45 to 60 days.
Yeah.
A business broker is typically, more involved in the negotiations and that sort of thing with the seller. And in this case, the seller is the franchisor. So
Right. Yeah. It's a different relationship. And I
it's
know
much different.
you and I talked off camera a little bit about the fact that about buyer criteria. Then you've got a different word for it, but a lot of times we talk to a lot of buyers, Bill and I, and we'll get, here are my criteria of what I want. And they start laying out things, revenue size, seller's discretionary cash flow or EBITDA, things they do or don't want. And by the time they layer everything out, they've cut themselves into such a small pigeonhole that, they're really missing the forest for the trees because they're really myopic in their viewpoint. So, and I know you and I talked about a little bit of a different match that you go through when you're talking to your clients.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to uncover as I work with someone is it's known as buyer values. And buyer values is like a wish list. So if I'm working with someone, they're going to start telling me things that become helpful as I perform a search. So, for example, they might say, Charlie, you know what? I don't want to work nights or weekends. So if we could find a business where there's no nights or weekends, that would be great. Charlie, I have X amount of dollars to invest. So let's make sure we stay within that range. Charlie, if we could find a home-based business, even better. And if I could leave a legacy for someone someday, I think you get the gist, Brent, that everyone has a unique set of buyer values. And once I
Right.
uncover all the buyer values, which I do, I use some technology to uncover buyer values. I use some assessments that will allow me to really, seek out franchisors that offer those same values. There's never a 100% match, but I can get extremely close. And what's fun for me, Brent, doing what I do is showing someone an opportunity that they never would have thought of. But the more they think about it, they're like, son of a gun, I know why he showed this. I like it a lot. So they end up, purchasing a franchise that was never even on the horizon for them. Um,
Right.
that's very rewarding for me.
Well, I think that the thing that I was amazed at, you told me that there were over 4,000 or close to 5,000 different franchises in the United States and Canada. And, some of them are well known and are national and wouldn't work with a franchise consultant. But, the cash to get into one of those type of transactions is $1 million or $2 million. So think of Chick-fil-A or some of those other larger franchises where you're not even sure, or you may not even know that they are a franchise.
Right. That's so right. A lot of the mature brands, they don't need to work with individuals like myself that can bring them qualified candidates because they have a wait list a mile long
Right.
of people waiting to get into their franchise. So I tend to work. I do have a lot of well-known brands that I work with, but at the same time, there's a lot of emerging brands. And I work with a lot of clients who will tell me, Charlie, I don't want to be a number. Show me something that's emerging where I can be
Right.
part of the founding members. And many times I'm seeking out those kinds of opportunities.
Well, there's really, and we talked about kind of the different models out there for franchising. So there used to be three or four, and now there's really kind of two models out there for people to take a look at and for opportunities.
Yeah, the misconception that's out there is there's what's known as an investor model. And
Right.
investor model started in the 1970s with Hilton Hotels, and you gave Hilton, again, X amount of dollars, and they ran the business for you. Um, those models today are pretty much extinct. And what is around today are two different models. The first one is owner operator, where the expectation of the franchisor is you're going to make them your sole focus and they want you to, not be working another job. Um,
Right.
and I will be honest in saying that was very popular up until COVID. And during COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs and they now have gone back and they have employment again, but this time they don't want to get caught flat footed. So they'll contact me and they'll say, Charlie, is there a part-time franchise out there? And there is, that is called passive ownership, where the expectation of the franchisor is they know that the candidate is working somewhere else. They're perfectly fine with that. Typically, passive ownership is accomplished through a general manager that they might hire to help them
Right.
with the daily operations. And again, it's a kind of a match made in heaven between the franchisor and the passive ownership franchisee, where it works for both parties. So that has become extremely popular since COVID.
So I think there's a little bit of an interesting model in that um, we typically, as a business broker, merger and acquisition advisor, represent sellers 90% of the time. It's very rare that we do buyer searches anymore. And we get paid by the seller to represent them and put their business on the market. Your relationship with your clients is a little bit different in that the franchise or pays you a fee and not the buyer.
Yes, and this is not something Charlie dreamt up. This
Yeah.
is something that's overseen by the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, and it's up to me to either charge my client that's looking to buy a franchise or get paid from the franchisor. I'm always going to take payment from the franchisor, but I always tell people right up front, don't buy it for Charlie, buy it for yourself. Um,
Right.
and if it's not for you, you'll never offend me. I would feel awful if someone purchased a franchise that they weren't 100% feeling. And, I definitely want them to have that expectation up front that, always be in education mode all the way to the finish line and really listen
Right.
closely and educate yourself on the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for especially first-time business buyers, people who've never bought a business before, don't understand the pitfalls, can get frustrated, and get turned off, and don't understand where to look, to hire somebody like a Charlie to help you get through that process. I know that we often joke with buyers when they're looking at a business where we basically tell them, look, it wouldn't be your worst nightmare until you put a letter of intent on it. Then I'm going to be your best friend because I'm going to help you get through due diligence, get what you need, help you with financing, be the ombudsman for SBA, which is a big deal.
Oh, yeah,
It's not a lightly. It's if you've never done it before, it can be a little cumbersome. Let's just put it that way, and a little bit takes about 60 to 90 days to get through a franchise or to get through an SBA application, and then working with the contracts to get them closed. And it's a lot of the same work that you do. And I just can't tell you, as a buyer, if you're looking at this episode, if you don't use Charlie, find somebody like Charlie with the same criteria because they're worth their weight in gold. And the big thing that I will tell you is it's those mistakes that you'll never make if you have somebody like Charlie. You're going to go into this not knowing if you're making a mistake, where Charlie or me on my side of the table are going to be able to help you through that process because we've done it 50, 60, 100, 200 times, and we know where the landmines are before that. Uh,
absolutely.
so typically your financing is through SBA in most
You
of it?
know, um, SBA is definitely quite popular. There's something out there called a ROBS, which is an acronym, excuse me, for Rollover for Business Startup. And, individuals are able to tap into their 401k, retirement funds, penalty free to help finance their franchise. And I would say over the last 2 years, I've done a lot of home equity line of credit financing deals. So what's great about, the folks that I will introduce my candidates to, they only do franchise financing. So they are the experts in determining what's best for the person I'm working with. And they'll give them, recommended suggestions. So I really rely on my partners for financing.
Yeah, and I think that's the other part, whether it's banks, lenders, attorneys that you may need to get involved in, or valuation people. Not that you need that service, but on the business side. So it's having somebody like Charlie or myself that have got all of those partners that are maybe involved in a transaction. So Charlie, we talked a little bit off camera about just the characteristics of a well-run franchisor. So what are some of the characteristics that particular buyers should be looking for when they sit down and talk to a franchisor?
Some of the characteristics that are most important can be found inside of what's known as the FDD, or the franchise disclosure document. And, one of the things that I coach the folks that I work with on is to really go through that document with a fine tooth comb, because there is some golden nuggets of information in there, such as how many owners joined the system last year, how many left, how many new openings are they looking to do this year. That has to be published inside the FDD. So that's really an important document. However, to be called a franchise, there's three characteristics that the franchisor has to offer. The first one is access to the trademark. And, you're looking for a trademark that, is a fine, upstanding brand, and The other thing that's quite important is initial training. So what does that look like? And that's a
Yeah,
question that I always, coach my candidates on, is to find out specifically what does that look like. And it really should come down to, at a minimum, 10 days of training, 5 days at the corporate headquarters and 5 days at their location. Could be more, but at a minimum, that should be what they receive. And then what does the ongoing support look like? If they hire someone that, maybe they want to send in for training, is that available? What do they have, a dedicated training manager, training department?
right.
So, initial training and ongoing support is, one of the keys and one of the reasons you buy a franchise. A lot of people don't know how to start up a business. And, by having a strong executive team at the franchisor level, I will compliment Miracle here. They had an incredible team. And, I was proud to bring candidates in for their discovery day and introduce them to the executive team because they practiced what they preached. And
Yeah, some franchises, and it depends on the franchise and the business segment you're in, but may require the franchisee to spend X amount of dollars as a percent of revenue in advertising.
that's right.
Uh, some of the franchisees may be required to have accounting done by corporate, so that their books are nice and clean and organized. So there's some different things that you need to take a look at as far as the characteristics. One of the things that I know that Charlie and we talked about this off camera as well, is just the culture of the organization and the other franchise owners that are in that marketplace. Are they sharing best practices? Is there a network to talk to people, so that you don't make the same mistakes that they may have bought when they just started the business, so you can learn from somebody else? Because you can call all the trainers in the world, but if you've got a a franchisee that's one territory over, that happens to have been there for 10 years, they could be a huge resource in just how to run a successful franchise. So I think culture is really important.
Culture is very important. And what you're describing is called validation calls. And that's a really important part of the process. I coach my candidates to speak to 3 to 5 owners at a minimum. And really, the reason for validation is the franchisor is bound to whatever is inside the FTD. And, if you were to ask them what a day in the life might look like, they're going to tell you, but I'd rather hear it from an owner. Tell me
Yeah.
what it's really like. And the good owners are going to share the good and the bad, because they had to go through the same process. And so I think, validation calls are extremely important. And when it comes to culture, Brent, since, I went out on my own, what's become the norm in franchising is a cultural profile assessment tool that franchisors are using. And the way it
Was that
works,
right?
they are having all of their owners take the one that I use is called Zoracle. Shout out to Rebecca Monet. She does a great job.
Yeah.
And it captures their profile of what is their culture value within the franchise system. So now new owners coming in, they're matched up against the best owner. And are they polar opposites culturally? Are they close? So the franchisors are taking even more things into consideration for approval, and cultural fit is definitely a big piece of it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really, because you may seem like you're out on an island, but the whole thing about having other franchisees around you, corporate trainers, branding, corporate help, product or other services that are supplied and sourced by the franchisee, really makes it very helpful for a first-time business owner. So,
And
um,
most franchise offer exclusive territories. So even though you're in a system with 500 owners, you're not in direct competition with each other because
right,
each franchise owner is willing to share those best practices. You're not in
yeah,
competition. So that's
yeah.
another big plus for franchising.
So, opposite end of that question, Charlie, red flags that buyers should look at or watch out for and recognize if they show up.
So some of the red flags that um, could pop up, well, the big red flags are found within the FDD. Maybe there's a bankruptcy in there. Maybe there's litigation from existing franchise owners, past owners. So again, the disclosure document is a big source of information that could yield some red flags. But other things to look for is, say, the balance sheet of the franchisor. That's inside the disclosure document. Maybe, they're not, fully flushed with cash. That could be a problem. And I can assure you, as a franchise broker, I'm not going to share those kinds of concepts with individuals that I work with. But if
Right,
someone went out on their own and on the very first phone call with the franchisor, they're asking them to sign the agreement within a week, that's a red flag that
yeah,
they're not taking the time to educate the person on the opportunity. They just are looking to get quick sales, discounting here or there, making, false promises. And some of these false promises are only discovered after you sign the agreement. So
yeah,
it's really, an integrity check through the 45 to 60 days of the discovery process that I introduce people to really get to know, the franchisor from top to bottom. And, other red flags are, have they rebranded a few times? And it's really the same dog that's out there. They've just changed the name. So there's, again, I just go back to working with an individual like myself who's been around that can
yeah,
identify, some of those pertinent red flags that can be a real problem for someone after they sign the agreement.
yeah, for sure. So, what would be I mean, what common mistakes do you see first-time buyers make and things that they should maybe try and avoid if possible?
One of the biggest mistakes I see is trusting everything they read on the internet. And that's not a good way to get information on the franchise.
Right,
Franchisors design it to where you're only going to get about 25% of their information online. They want you to engage with them. They want to make sure that you're a potential good fit for them before, they give you the other 75%. So
right,
what you are reading online is just a tip of the iceberg of what kind of information that's out there on the franchise. So that's a big one. The other thing I tend to see is people want the lowest royalty. Whatever that
right,
lowest royalty is, Charlie, show me those kinds of opportunities. And that's not always the best strategy either. Whatever royalty percentage a franchisor charges their owner should equal or exceed the value that they bring to the table. So
yeah.
not, going with the lowest investment, lowest royalty is always not the best strategy.
Right.
Um,
I mean, you should get it back. I mean, there should be recognition in on what you're getting for those royalties and
that's
things
right.
that you can't give yourself, whether they're again training, access to product, accounting, um, advertising on a national basis, the ability to also do co-advertising if possible. So it's you should I mean, I think that's a really good point because if you're not paying anything, you're probably not going to get anything back.
Right. And are there low royalty great franchises out there? Absolutely. But, when people come to me and they say, just show me the lowest, that's
Yeah,
that's not a good strategy. And, another mistake I see a lot of people make is they don't think about their exit strategy. And that's a very important piece when you buy a franchise. And sometimes I get strange looks and, what do you mean, Charlie? I'm trying to get in, not out. Well, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? That's the normal range of a franchise agreement. Are you going to renew your agreement? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to hand it down to a family member? What is that strategy? And, you know, Brent, you and I have worked together in the past on those that said, I'm going to sell. So
Yep.
roughly the 8-year mark, they start working with individuals like yourself to prepare for sale.
Yeah.
So, that's a big piece to consider is exit strategy up front.
Yeah. How's it look, and when,
Right.
and how do you build an organization that's enough turnkey that somebody else that's going to come in and they'll pay you for all that goodwill you've built up, um, to hand off on a cash flow basis. So I think it's an important aspect of it. Um, well, Charlie, this has been really enlightful. I really appreciate you coming on the channel. And again, I will just tell you that I get calls all the time from buyers looking for businesses and needing tremendous amount of help. And there are brokers who will help buyers buy businesses, but I had never come across a franchise certified executive like yourself. So it's use Charlie or somebody like him, and we'll leave Charlie's information in the comment section below. But the other thing is that if you've got a question for Charlie, we'll leave his email. Just pop him a quick email, leave it in the comment section below. I will make sure that Charlie gets those and that we get back to you as soon as I can. And Charlie, I know you're active anywhere in the United States as well as Canada.
Yes, I do both, and I work with a lot of people north of the border. So,
There you
yes,
go. Well, that comes from your time being in Minneapolis, I
that's
think.
true.
But
That's true.
yeah, okay. Well, Charlie, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here, and it's great just reconnecting and spending some time with you.
Thanks so much, Brent, for your time too.
You're welcome. I want to thank Charlie Bever for joining us today on the channel. As you can see, hiring a certified franchise executive or franchise consultant to help you in a search for a franchise is really important. And especially if you're a first-time business buyer, it's like critical. You've got to take that opportunity to reach out and find a CFE to help you in your search. So again, I'm going to leave all of Charlie's contact information below. Feel free to reach out to him directly to discuss what you're looking for, and hopefully he can help you on your way to finding the perfect franchise match. So if you got something out of this episode, please hit the like and subscribe button. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode.